Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to begin in about 2 minutes. Actually, it looks like it's 7:35, so why don't we start now? I want to welcome everyone. My name is Margie French. I'm the Executive Director of India Cultural Center. ICC is a nonprofit that celebrates the arts and the culture of India. Our mission is to foster inclusion by educating and engaging the community in Indian arts and culture. During these extraordinary times, ICC is building a bridge to the post-pandemic world. Our goal is to connect people through shared experiences and to draw upon the talent and resources of ICC's community. This evening, we're tapping into the knowledge of two nutritional experts, Ipashri Bharti and Silu Narvekar. Ipashri is a clinical nutritional therapist with a specialized interest in the functional medicine approach to health. She is very involved in the field of autoimmunity and passionate about the healing power of food. This evening, she'll be talking about nutritional and lifestyle changes that can transform people's lives. Silu is a nutrition and culinary coach and a chef. She helps clients navigate their health journey by rooting out where they feel stuck. Her hope is to give people the safety and the security in their bodies so they feel good inside and out. Tonight, Silu will tell us how to make nutritional advice work in everyday life. Tonight's program is being broadcast as a webinar, except for Silu and Ipashri. Ipashri, you're all going to be incognito. And if you would like to ask a question at any time, you can enter your question in the Q&A at the icon in your toolbar. It may be at the top, it may be in the bottom, but please do so at any time. We'll all be able to see the questions and they'll be able to answer them, or we can type the answers in. So please, let's welcome Ipashri and Silu.
Thank you so much, Margie, for having us. We are very excited to be here tonight, and Ipashri and I were speaking, and we thought with so much heaviness in the world right now, we just wanted to keep this conversation fun and informative. So we're really in a dialogue between the two of us. We see a lot of clients in practice, and we hope we can share some of those nuggets with you on how to understand and navigate some of the, there's lots of nutritional information out there, and how to navigate that in everyday life. And hopefully you can walk away with 1 or 2 tips. So while we're dialoguing, we're hoping that you will join in the conversation and ask questions that you've had. We have some questions for each other. We're just going to have a conversation back and forth and keep it hopefully light and fun and interesting at the same time. But please drop your questions in the Q&A box and we will check them as we go. But Ipashri, why don't we start? So the program name is Nutritional Resilience. Maybe you can just start laying some of the foundation of understanding what immunity is and why it's really, we all sort of understand why it's important, but what from a nutritional perspective makes it so important right now.
First of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Let me start off with the immune system. So the immune system is a complex network of cells and proteins that defends the body against infections. It is important to note that it is present throughout your body, even your brain. So the immune cells are continually sampling the environment around for foreign substances. They can be living substances such as bacteria, or non-living substances such as air pollutant particles, or in this case, a virus. Sorry, my computer is giving me a little trouble. So what happens in, I'm sorry, my computer is, okay. So when you encounter a virus, the first thing that happens is your body launches an innate immune response. This is your first line of defense against pathogens. The main purpose of the innate immune response is to immediately prevent the spread and movement of foreign pathogens throughout the body. This is the part of the immune system that can play a very significant role in how the virus replicates and affects people. Then the second line of defense is your adaptive immune system. That happens for specific infections. that the body already recognizes those infections. It launches the second part of the immune response, which is your adaptive immune response. During all of these processes, the body produces natural killer cells, dendritic cells, mast cells, B cells, T cells. All of these cells are extremely important in protecting us from an immune response.
So we both understand that a lot of lifestyle factors play into immune response and immunity. And I know you also focus on autoimmune. So can we talk a little bit about the foods we should be eating and we shouldn't be eating? I know we both have, we look at it with different lenses a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the key here is to understand that part of what is causing a lot of harm for people is the over-exaggerated, or rather an over-exuberant immune response. It's not necessarily the virus, it's the cytokines that our body is creating in response to the virus that is causing, that is making some people feel awful, and it's not making some people feel as bad. So a lack of immune resilience may end up having, if you have lack of immune resilience, you may end up having a bigger, more exaggerated response to the virus.
So when you talk about the immune response, and can you distinguish that maybe from inflammation? Because I know that's a word a lot of people hear. So how does that play into the immune response? Or a lot of people are already with autoimmune, have a lot of inflammation already.
Yeah, so what happens is when you have a immune response, it is you are producing cytokines, which are inflammatory, but these are necessary. Inflammation is a necessary part to combat any non-self pathogen in the body. So the body produces cytokines, and this is what helps us fight the infection. The problem happens when either it's producing way too many inflammatory cytokines, or it doesn't have enough antioxidants to balance the cytokines it's producing. Also, if you're already in an inflamed state, that can cause problems because you already have enough inflammation going on, and then you encounter the virus, and the body is producing more inflammatory cytokines, and now you need to have all these antioxidants to deal with the present inflammation and the new inflammation. This is when some people are having a more exaggerated response to the virus.
So let's talk about some of these lifestyle factors that play into helping someone either reduce any inflammation they already have and build up their immunity or immune defense system. So should we talk a little bit about the different foods that people should be eating, shouldn't be eating, and how that works? Because I think that's a little bit of the crux of understanding this, right?
That's probably the most important question a lot of people want to know. And yes, food can absolutely play a very significant role in how your body responds to the virus. Not just food, they're lifestyle factors. They're factors such as the normal ones, which are the obvious ones, the food, the exercise, but there are certain factors that are so neglected and overlooked, such as sleep and hydration, which are equally important. So let me start with food. When you think of food, always think, or when you think of eating for your immunity to build immune resilience, always think of eating a rainbow. Think of color. Think of eating as many different colors in a day as possible of foods. And I don't mean just vegetables. I mean different kinds of different colors of lentils, different colors of spices, different colors of teas, black tea, green tea, red tea. Everything can play an effect. What this does is when you're having different kinds of different colors of foods, it can significantly improve the phytochemical complexity in your body. All these foods, different colors, have different levels of different phytochemicals which you need to combat, which act as antioxidants, and you need that, like we just talked about, to get rid of the inflammation in the body. So you need to be eating a rainbow. By rainbow, I mean lots of colors, red foods, green foods, yellow foods, purple foods. All of these are equally important. A lot of us, especially me, I get stuck sometimes just getting what I normally get all the time and not increasing my diversity. So I normally have a chart in front of me, and then when I when I grocery shop, I'm like, okay, I have now everything's online, right? We're not going into stores. So it's made my life easier. I look at my cart online and I say, okay, that's green, that's green, that's green, that's green. Let me add some yellow. Let me add some red. Let me add some purple. And this is how I make sure that I have a diverse color of foods in my pantry and my fridge. So when I go to cook, I have those as options. A lot of us know what the green foods are. They are the normal, the broccoli, the asparagus, the cauliflower, the kale, sorry, not the cauliflower, the kale, the Brussels sprouts, all these things. But they're also, the most overlooked color of food is the purple. The purple, black category, purple, blue, and black category is extremely overlooked. Those are like acai berries, blueberries, blackberries, black lentils are part of this, black tea. So there's purple carrots, there's purple cauliflower, there's purple kale. So you need to incorporate a lot of these colors in your diet as much as possible. The red foods, there are loads of red foods, and which are very obvious. I think in a normal, healthy American diet, there's enough red foods. There's apples, there's berries, there's cherries, pink pomegranate, pink grapefruit, red lentils, red onions, plums. There's a lot of that. And then there's the yellow food group, which also I think we have enough of in our diet. Bananas, very common. There's lemons, there's millet, there's ginger, which is a spice, but it is part of your yellow food groups. So it's really important to add all of these in your diet. Then first you need to think about eating a rainbow. Think color, think big, just think color. As many colors in a day, not just a week, as many colors in a day as you can. The really important thing to remember is that a little bit of a lot of different colors is much better than a lot of only one color. I'm going to repeat that one more time because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. A little bit of a lot of different colors is better than a lot of one color. So if I often get people come and tell me, oh, I eat a bowl of broccoli every day for lunch. I'm eating a bowl of broccoli. I'm doing well. That's great that you're getting there. But if you eat the same quantity, instead of eating broccoli, vary it, not just that, but have various different kinds in that same bowl. You're going to get much more nutrition out of a bowl of broccoli and peppers and carrots and even potatoes, as opposed to just eating a bowl of broccoli, because you're getting your phytochemical diversity, which is important because that's your antioxidants and that's what you need for the virus. So that's important.
I think having that diversity is important on so many levels. From 70 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And so that good bacteria, the probiotics in our gut, need to have a diversity of foods. And they also love something like prebiotic foods, which are the substances that they feed off of. But I hear from clients again that they find themselves eating the same foods, which is, and I'm not as organized as Ipashri, so I know that having this rainbow chart is fabulous. But I feel like there's other ways you can go about that as well. So what I do is someone just asked this question, so I'm going to actually touch upon this, which is cooking raw versus cooked foods. So that is a great way to think about diversifying your foods. Is also diversifying your cooking methods. Different nutritional properties are released with different cooking methods. So broccoli, for example, loses its nutritional value when you cook it a certain way, when you roast it, but better when you steam it. Tomatoes are enhanced when you cook them. Garlic, when you chop it and leave it to sit, it releases some enzymes. So I would also suggest in diversifying your foods is a way to diversify the way you cooked. Another example is potatoes. When you cook and cool potatoes, it increases the resistant starch that they have, which is something that the good bacteria in your gut feed off of. So in terms of raw foods and cooked foods, it also changes the bacterial profile of the food. So I say mix it up as much as you can. It's summer now. People like to cook lighter things. And so some of those things that you may not have wanted a few months ago when we were in quarantine, you may want now in raw foods.
Yeah. Also, I think when you think about foods, also think about foods with antiviral properties. It's so important now to have foods that contain antiviral properties. You know, things like coconut oil, garlic, ginger, oregano, thyme, apple cider vinegar, green tea, honey, turmeric, walnut. There's so many of them that have specific antiviral properties that help in a time like this. Incorporate them in your diet. The great thing about using food to treat you, to build up your immune resilience, is that there is no dosages. You can use them as much as you want, except the honey. I would watch out as to how much honey we're eating, but all of these foods are extremely nutritious, and it's really important to incorporate them in your diet. It's not just that. You can also, I mean, if you want to get more specific, you can get specific. The nutrients that are really important for immunity are your vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin D, quercetin, glutathione, zinc, selenium. You can specifically find foods that contain vitamin C. You can specifically look at foods that contain vitamin D. Besides sunlight, of course, which is not a food, there's some foods that contain high levels of vitamin D, zinc, glutathione. All these things will help you. If you want to go that route, you can take a look, just Google and say, take foods that are high in zinc, or foods that are high in selenium, foods that are high in glutathione, and try to see how many of those you're eating a week, and make sure you incorporate some of those every day or every few days. That'll help as well.
I find that clients often get overwhelmed when you say to eat so many fruits and vegetables, right? This number of servings is a little overwhelming. So one quick tip that I have is to really, and I come from a chef perspective, so set up your pantry and it'll take you a really long way. And so there's pantry list, which we can provide for you for sure. But my pantry has a few other items that I like to keep in with, which I'd like to share with you, because I think it really makes the difference from eating 5 to 10 servings of vegetable, much easier and much more palatable. So some of the other things I have in my pantry are, under the dried goods, I have a lot of gluten-free pastas, and I have the rice noodles as well too, which are gluten-free. We're going to talk about gluten in a second too. Nuts, butters, and seeds. They have a lot of the properties that Ipashri was just talking about. They change a meal so drastically. They can keep, by the way, I keep them in my fridge or freezer because they can go rancid easily. But if you keep them frozen or in your refrigerator, they will keep a much longer time. During the pandemic, I had a hard time getting lemons and limes for some reason. So those really perk up any meal. I found these little bottles of lemon and lime juice, and now I'm so tired of cooking. I really don't even want to cut open a lemon half the time to get a squeeze. I still use the squeeze bottles in my refrigerator. I keep certain things in my freezer, like tortillas and some gluten-free seed bread. But the one category I really feel like really changes your meal dynamics is what I call flavor bombs. And they're things like miso paste, chipotle peppers and adobo, nutritional yeast, red curry paste, tamari, which is a gluten-free soy sauce, tahini, dried mushrooms. And I really want people to cook, and so you have to make it as easy as possible for them. So adding just a few simple ingredients and then adding something, what I call one of the flavor bombs to it, makes it much more palatable, and it really just perks up your whole meal. Someone asked a question about cooking oils. So in the pantry, does using a range of, one of the questions is, does using a variety of oils in cooking help, such as walnut, avocado, and olive oil? Yes. There's omega-3 acids, and then there's omega-6 acids. And in the standard American diet is really full of a lot of omega-6s. So you really are trying, and you really want a much different ratio. You want a 3-to-1 of omega-3 to omega-6 to balance. And a lot of this affects your inflammatory response in your gut too. So I like to keep an array of different oils. Olive oil is great, avocado. They serve different purposes from a cooking perspective. They have different smoke points. So you don't want to be using something like a walnut oil, for example, in cooking. It's just more as a dressing. And some of these oils, they oxidize. Even olive oil at a higher temperature will oxidize and affect the way it affects your body, and it'll affect your body differently as well. So, but they all have different properties. So yes, going to your point about diversity of oils is also
really
great.
important. Just like diversifying your foods, you need to diversify your oils. It's not like one oil fits all and it's going to be healthy. You need to eat a variety. I would add I think your list is pretty comprehensive, but I would add coconut oil to that list as well.
Mm-hmm.
We use duck fat and lard. Sometimes if I'm deep frying foods for my daughters, I use duck fat or lard because that's a great way. I don't want to deep fry olive oil or avocado oil or walnut oil or coconut oil. I use that sometimes, but you can put that in your repertoire as well. So that'll really help.
And the other one I like personally is sesame because it adds so much flavor with still a teeny bit as well.
Another question about fruits versus vegetables. Can you please talk about fruits versus vegetables?
I feel like people vilify fruits a lot of times, and I'd say I'd much rather have someone eat a fruit than eat something like a processed bag of chips or something else that they're going for. So again, it all goes back to what Ipashri said about diversity. You do want to have much more vegetables in your diet than I'd say 5 to 10 servings of vegetables versus fewer servings of fruit. But fruit is delicious. It's very common.
You're way nicer to your patients than I am. I'm like, no. You need to have out of the 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, you need to make sure 8 of them are vegetables. You can walk away with 2 and 1 of them has to be berries.
I know. Well,
that's just how I am with my patients. But generally overall, in a time like this, when it's so hard to go out grocery shopping, when it's so hard to find things, I mean, things have gotten a lot better now, but overall, you're not going out to grocery shop as much as you used to. A lot of people are still getting food delivered. So I would say at this time, just focus on eating a variety. It will really help your microbiome, like Silu was saying, diversify your microbiome and diversify, which is really important for your gut health. So
I'm going to add to that and say, unless you have symptoms, you're bloating, you have digestive issues and stuff, a lot of these where I might recommend something like a lower glycemic index where fruit would be more limited, I'd say I feel like I take a slightly loser stand on fruit. But one tip about fruit is there's different ranges of fruit, right? There's definitely starchier fruits and higher glycemic load fruits as well versus something like a berry. Most of the berries are really much more lower glycemic in their properties, and they're the reds and the blues and full of phytonutrients as well, so they're much better to eat. And I also, the other thing I've learned about fruit over the years is people often top their meals off with fruit, but fruit travels through the digestive tract very quickly. So if you are bloating when you're eating fruit, it's sometimes better for your digestive system to eat it during the day.
We have another question about vitamin D. Is vitamin D helpful in coronavirus? It absolutely is. I think vitamin D is the new vitamin on the block, and it has been for a really long time. It's just that the public is getting to know about it. There's been papers on it for years and years, and how I think it's more important than vitamin C. And I would recommend everybody, when you're starting to move around and go out, get yourself a vitamin D test. Go to your clinician or your doctor and have them test you for your vitamin D levels. If they're anything lower than 70, I would absolutely start either supplementing it or and taking foods that are high in vitamin D. You cannot get enough vitamin D just from foods. Of course, the things that are found is, you all know about sunshine, obviously, but there's fatty fish such as tuna, salmon, mackerel that has high levels of vitamin D. Liver has high levels of vitamin D, eggs, dairy, and mushrooms. So, but it is very hard to find them in high quantity to increase your vitamin D levels in high quantities with these foods. But I would really recommend everybody to go to your doctor and get themselves tested, get their vitamin D levels tested. I think it is already on the annual physical.
Yeah, it usually is.
So if you have your annual physical, pull it out, check what your vitamin D levels are. The doctor will happily tell you 30 or above. There is a difference between functional range and lab range. Mm-hmm. Functional range wants your health to be optimum. Lab range wants you to be alive. So just be aware that when the doctor says just 30, that's not enough. Your vitamin D needs to be higher. It needs to be 70, around 60 or 70 is a healthy vitamin D. For older individuals, I would say between 45 and 70. That's what you're aiming for. Higher than 70 is great. The highest is, I think, about 98 or 100 here, but you need to have high levels of vitamin D. So yes, it is very important it's extremely antiviral.
I have tried, I don't know, there's cod liver oil, which I keep in the fridge too. It's lemon flavored and it's not so bad. So that's what I take. I get my vitamin D.
That's your liver. Absolutely, you can do cod liver oil.
Yeah.
But if you do supplement with vitamin D, just make sure you do D3, not D2, because D3 is the preferred source for the body. It's not D2.
And usually, do you recommend that people take it with vitamin K as well?
I don't. Most of the good vitamins actually come with vitamin K. If you get a good brand, not like a CVS or a Costco brand, but if you go to Whole Foods and get a decent brand, it will come with the cofactors it needs, vitamin K. But what I would highly recommend is to not have it first thing in the morning or have it in the middle of the day when your stomach is empty. Vitamin D is fat soluble. You need to eat it with little fat. Like if you're eating a salad, make sure you put some dressing on it. If you're taking vitamin D, you should be putting dressing on your salad no matter what. The fat is really important for you to absorb all the fat soluble nutrients from your salad. But you should be taking vitamin D with a good meal that has some fat in it. Mm-hmm. It's really important. It is fat soluble. You need fat to absorb it back into your body. So,
I think a lot of the vitamin D caplets, they take that into account. They do have the fat in there to make it more absorbable.
Yes, but I've had clients who have taken it. Like one of my patients, I was just talking to him recently, had no idea. He was taking it 2 hours after his meal, because he said it had everything in it. His levels went from 10 to 21 in 1 year after taking 50,000 a week. So yeah. So
he needed something else. Yeah. And this is great. Vitamin D is actually easy to measure with the doctor, and you should do a test just to see where your levels are. There was one question about brands that you recommend. I actually don't look at a particular brand. I look at the back of the bottle, and there's different vitamins and minerals that you could take. And there's so much research and stuff, but there's certain components of the vitamins or minerals. For example, you're talking about D3, it's more absorbable, and there's different forms of different vitamins that are more absorbable. And you have to look, even the best brands, like, use Thorne and Metagenics before, you still have to look at the back and then research to see what's the most bioavailable, what's the most absorbable form of that, and see if that's what's on the bottle.
Correct. Yeah. I resonate with what you're saying. Just make sure it's D3. I don't think it matters so much with vitamin D. And just make sure the important thing is, when you buy any supplements, not just vitamin D, make sure it doesn't have corn and things, fillers. They add a lot. The capsule is made out of corn or some stuff that's already going to be inflammatory because it's an irritant. So just read the label, read the ingredients. It should be olive oil or vitamin E oil or something else along with it. Just healthy ingredients, even for supplements, because they can use a lot of fillers that are inflammatory. So a lot of the CVS brand will have corn oil in it or some sort of corn in it, and that's inflammatory by itself.
I find that some of the tablets too, because you have to bind them together, they usually have binders in them, the fillers that you don't want. So just read the back of the bottles and then cross-reference to Google to see what the most bioavailable form is. While we're on this topic, I know there's one question here, but let's go back to foods. What we talked about, because I heard you talk about fillers and things you shouldn't eat. Why don't we talk about things that disrupt your gut microbiome or are not good to eat as well?
Yeah, and
I don't like to focus on those things.
While you're talking about it, Silu, also let's talk about. I think maybe you can shed some light on when I get patients to say this is what you should be eating, and they often get stuck with the same things they eat over and over again. How do you help people with that?
I think it's very much human nature. So some of the things I suggest to them is to diversify their routine, which is really, it's a little hard thing to ask for people to do. But some ways to do that, you can look up a new blogger, you can look up a new recipe book. I would ask friends that that like to cook and say, what is it? Give me 2 or 3 of your favorite recipes, not what you think I would like, but what you like, because by then you'll start diversifying your repertoire a little bit. So those are some ways that I would have clients start thinking about diversity of their choices a little bit.
Right.
So, Someone's asking, do you recommend multivitamins? Yes. So there's only a few supplements that I would recommend in general, because I feel like everybody's body is so different and specific. But in general, I think the nutritional properties of foods have changed so much over the years. Like when we used to get apples, like, and pick them off the tree and be able to eat them. Now they sit on a truck and come to us. And even the soil has depleted in some of the nutritional properties and value, some of the micronutrients that we need. So a good multivitamin is sort of an insurance policy that you're getting the basis of things that you may not be getting through all the foods that Ipashri and I want you to be eating. So I'd say multivitamin is something I would recommend. What you were saying is vitamin D, depending on your blood levels with your doctor. I would also recommend usually like an omega-3 fatty acid is for some people, I think, really beneficial to take.
Yeah. Okay, so we have, we've heard about cans getting a bad rap. Are canned vegetables like beans still okay in your opinion?
Yes, I would say, well, most cans now are BPA free, which is what the ingredient that was, which gave them a bad rap. A lot of vendors are now switching to boxed beans. You see black beans now in the boxes. So I think that's actually a better option if you can find it, which has been a source of pain in the last few weeks of finding the right things. But yes, they are okay. My preference over even canned vegetables is frozen vegetables and frozen fruits. So I keep those in my pantry for whenever I need them.
I agree. Frozen, I mean, focus on frozen. If you have an option between fresh is obviously the best, but if you can't find fresh produce between canned and frozen, I think canned is okay. It's better to eat vegetables than not eat any at all. But if you have a choice of eating frozen, frozen is slightly better. They heat up the cans to extreme heat to make sure they preserve well. So you are losing some nutrients from the vegetables in that process. The frozen food is generally better because it's picked ripe, which is actually not even true for the fresh vegetables that we're eating. It's picked ripe and frozen pretty much right away. So it is a better option than canned food, but canned vegetables are fine if you can't find any fresh.
Right. And we understand that everybody's living within constraints right now.
Correct. Okay. So let me, while we are looking at more questions, let me talk about other lifestyle factors. We've talked about food. We've talked about how that's really important.
Wait, before you go there, can we talk about the foods that we should avoid? Because I feel like those
absolutely.
are important. Yeah. So on my list of foods to avoid, I would say sugar is probably number one. And bacteria love sugar, and so do viruses. It creates a very unhealthy environment in your gut. And I know there's a lot of debate in the nutrition world about so many factors, like you hear wine being good, wine being bad. There's never any debate about whether sugar should be incorporated in your diet. I think that's the one, would you agree? That's the one universal principle I think people agree on in the nutrition world. Number two is processed foods. There's so many different, if you buy anything processed, you turn it over, there's emulsifiers, there's oils. The way the cooking process has really created a lot of unstable compounds to go into your body, and these can really disrupt your microbiome. Another one people don't often think about is artificial sweeteners. This, it really reduces the amount of good bacteria in your gut and can really, in some ways, trick your body into thinking about its sugar needs. So it could create actually more high blood sugar in your body than you need it to have. Gluten products, I know there's so much in the market now about gluten-free products, and you see it everywhere. But if you have digestive issues, this is kind of like bloating, flatulence, any of those sort of issues, I would say gluten's something to avoid altogether. It can, your gut lining is where most of your immune system is. If you have any sort of gluten intolerance, or definitely if you have celiac, gluten exacerbates these issues and allows toxins to go into your bloodstream.
I would almost say, if you have any sort of autoimmune conditions, it's best to avoid gluten because it is inflammatory. And if you're extremely healthy and everything's going well, you can. It probably won't cause as many problems. But if you're not under stress, if you don't have any underlying health issues, if you're totally, everything is going, all your blood work is absolutely within the functional range, not the lab range, you can tolerate gluten. But there are very few of us who actually are like that.
Right.
Many
Right.
of us have issues.
And the gluten nowadays, the reason why it's so in the news and everything is the gluten in wheat now is changed than when it was years ago. So the products are actually different. There's a higher gluten content, which is, and a lot of the non-organic wheat has been sprayed with something called glyphosate. So the combination of the two is really disruptive to the gut microbiome. The last one I would say to avoid or eliminate, if possible, if you're having, again, digestive issues, is dairy. And that's, you take it out for a while, you eliminate it. And if your symptoms clear up, if you feel better, and then you could add it back in if you're fine. But if it helps, then that's another one. I would say that's my list of sort of key ones to avoid. And I usually don't like to talk about things you can not eat, and rather focus on all the things you can eat. But I thought it was important to bring those few things up.
Yeah. We have some questions. Should we take those?
Yes. Yeah.
Are there any fruits we should avoid? I'm guessing this is towards me. Yes and no. I would avoid consuming a lot of high sugar fruits like banana, grapes, watermelon, lots of mango. These contain high levels of fructose. So I wouldn't eat multiple of those a day. A little bit of a banana a day is fine. I wouldn't eat 2 or 3 bananas a day. Same with watermelon and grapes and some of these high sugar foods. Otherwise, absolutely not. You can eat all food. Berries are my preferred source of fiber and nutrients from food, but you need to include a variety, which is also really equally important.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's everything in moderation, except for some of the things we just talked about, which we try to avoid. But otherwise, I think that's a motto to sort of live by, right?
Correct. So we have another question. What about bars and protein shakes? You want to take that, and then I'll give my opinion.
I can give you my opinion on those. So again, I would look at the label and see what's in them. There's a whole wide range of bars out there, just sort of going back to the vitamin analogy or the supplement analogy, which brand. They all come in different shapes and sizes. So you look at the back, are they natural ingredients? Are there things you can't pronounce? Again, if you're going to have a protein shake and you do it once a week or twice a week, I think that those things are okay. But if something, human nature, we eat the same thing again and again, I would say maybe that's a habit to try to shake and add in more real food instead.
Correct. Same. I agree with that. Just read your labels. I think better than a protein bar is or any bar is trail mix. We have this in our pantry where we have nuts and we have raisins and cranberries and goji berries and all of them lined up, and we have a little scoop. And then we have containers with all our names on it. And in the beginning of the week or on a Sunday night when we used to be out of the house, I would have the kids go in and take a couple of scoops of whatever they wanted for the week. And that would be sort of our snack. So I would say, if you're on the go, just make a pack of trail mix. Mm-hmm. And that would be a better option than bars, because most of these bars, what happens is in order for them to stick together, they have to use honey or some sort of sweetener for them to stay in that shape of a bar. So just be mindful, read the labels. General rule for labels is that if you look at the ingredients, always look at the ingredients, guys. Don't worry about looking at calories. Look at the ingredients. It's much more it's a much better use of your time. If there are loads of ingredients that you can't pronounce, or it's full of 30 ingredients and some of them you can't pronounce and you don't know what they are, chances are they're not good for you. So focus on that. Look at the ingredients of anything you're taking. And in terms of protein, sorry, go ahead, Silu.
Oh, no. I was going to say there's also more natural ways you could make your own protein shakes. I have I have a daughter who loves protein shakes, and what she does, she puts hemp seeds in them. So she'll do like a cacao smoothie, cacao powder, which is high in antioxidants, some almond milk, a little bit of banana, not too much, hemp seeds, chia seeds, Sometimes I have maca. Sometimes I don't think she uses the maca, but then she has a collagen powder which she puts in, and those ingredients are all they're very clean ingredients. So she makes her own protein shakes, and those are things that you can actually, you can package them together yourself and then just throw it in the morning after you're a rush. So I think it's then you know what's going into the foods. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I would add to that is probably a little bit of fat in that, like either almond butter or avocado.
Oh
or
yeah, there's
fat.
there is peanut butter in there too.
Fat is, and like it's so important. People, I think fat is so underestimated. It is so important for us. It keeps us satiated. Many times a lot of my patients who have cravings for carbs or sugar are not eating enough protein, of course, because their blood sugar is all over the place, but they're also not eating enough carbs. That keeps you satiated, it gives you the feeling of fullness. And it's really important. You need to include some fat in your diet. We talked about certain oils you can cook with.
Yeah.
Also adding avocado, nuts, and seeds in your diet is really important.
Yes, totally agree. Roxanne's, there's a question here. Is pure stevia okay? I don't have a problem with stevia. I feel like it's a little, from a cooking perspective, I feel it's a little bit more bitter than I like it. It changes the flavor profiles. I would rather use something, I'm not a huge fan of the sugar alcohols, but those are good sweeteners for certain baking products. But even I'd rather use, depending on what you're using it for, but you could use a little touch of honey or a little bit of maple syrup too. It'll probably have a different flavor profile. What do you think?
Yes, I agree with that. But also I have seen in my clinical practice that stevia affects different people differently. Even though it's natural and it comes from trees, plants, it does affect different people differently. I can take, I can take stevia and have a small insulin response, and somebody else may not have that. So just when you're substituting stevia in your food, just see how you feel, whether you're having that blood sugar high feeling or not. If you are, then chances are you are responding to it. You can obviously get a blood glucose meter and poke a hole in, use a blood thing and test it, but I wouldn't go that far. I would just understand how your body feels after you take it. And if you are reacting to it, then you're losing the taste because you're adding stevia and you're not really getting that many health benefits. Just be careful. If maybe you're one of those people who it doesn't affect, the blood sugar levels are normal or not that crazy after taking stevia, and then it's fine. You can use it. We have another question. What about probiotics? Can we take capsules, or is there a better way to get that? I'll direct that to you, Silu.
Oh, probiotics. I feel like probiotics do absolutely help you with your gut diversity, especially nowadays. We're using, there was a big trend not to use antibacterial wipes for a while because they wipe out your gut bacteria, right? Good and bad. And now I'm not saying not to use them. I just feel like we are overusing them, and because we have to. But so a probiotic may not be a bad, again, insurance policy to take. The one issue with probiotics is I would mix up different brands. They're great because they do add diversity to your microbiome, but they only have usually about 8 to 10 strains, I'd say. And so that doesn't get you the full diversity. So some other foods, like natural foods like yogurt, have it. You can also, there's a lot of fermented foods where you can help your gut. There's kimchi, there's kefir, kombucha, for example. Those are great, more natural ways to get some probiotics too.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. There's so many. We have a lot of Eastern cultures use fermented foods, and they've been using it for centuries. So, call that aunt of yours who loves to cook, or call your mom and find out how to ferment foods. Fermented foods are extremely beneficial to increase your microbiome, and it's a great substitute for taking probiotics. If you do take probiotics, change them up and stop taking them after a little while. With probiotics, there are different strains. So same thing, diversity. You need to diversify the strains you're taking. You can't just keep taking the same strain for the whole year or 2 years or 3 years. After you finish the bottle, go get a different strain of probiotics. But there's a lot of research now. Be cautious, saying we should be cautious with the amount of probiotics we are taking. There are different strains that can affect people differently. So I would go with food. Personally, I don't take as many probiotics, just first start with food. And if you think you need it, diversify your strains as you go.
I mean, if you've just taken antibiotics or something like that, a lot of times doctors just automatically tell you, go take some probiotics to just repopulate your gut.
Yes, that's very important. It's very, very important. When you take antibiotics, you cannot eat enough prebiotic food to repopulate that gut. So it's not just that. I had a patient who took an antibiotic and probiotic at the same time. That's not going to do anything.
No.
They need to be at least 3 hours apart.
But what you can do is you can take something called Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a yeast. So there's some research to show that you can take that when you're taking antibiotics. And so when you get off your antibiotics, you may not lose as much of the bad bacteria, or you'll be able to repopulate a little bit quicker.
Correct. Yes.
So what's a reasonable amount of coffee to consume per day?
I'll go ahead. So, I want to start off this conversation about coffee by talking about sleep. And Silu knows she's going to have to shut me up in this conversation, because I could talk for the next hour about how sleep is so important for your immune system. So, we are the only mammals who delay sleep. All other mammals fall asleep when they're tired, or when it's dark outside. Human beings are the only ones who look at sleep as a disruption between them and a good Netflix binge, right? Like you have to give importance to sleep. I can get people to change their diet radically, but I cannot get them to give up their phone or a computer an hour earlier. It is really important that you sleep well. Your body goes through in the morning. When you wake up, you have high levels of a hormone called cortisol, and as the day goes on, in the evening, the levels of cortisol go down, and levels of melatonin, another hormone, has to increase, and that's what makes you feel sleepy. Melatonin, they've done studies which are directly pointing to the fact that melatonin is really particularly useful or against SARS-CoV-2. So I would say you shouldn't do anything that interferes with your melatonin level. It's extremely important for you at this time. If you want to fight the virus, melatonin levels are extremely important. With coffee, I would say about, more than an amount. Yes, you shouldn't be drinking personally more than 1 to 2 cups a day. But even so, more important is the time of the day you have coffee. They've done studies where they've showed that coffee peaks in the blood 30 minutes after consuming it. But even after 7 hours, they've done studies and they've found coffee in serum after 7 hours of consuming it. So I would say, have that last cup of coffee just to leave enough time to not interfere with your melatonin production, because that's really important for sleep. So that's my thing on coffee. Be careful. Just be careful with it not interfering with your sleep.
I think it's also very bio-individual, because if you have other issues going on, some adrenal issues, fatigue issues, my clients joke that every question they ask, I ask them 3 other questions about their lives. So a reasonable amount of coffee per day, it could be, that could be, 1 or 2 could be okay, but for some, if there's so many other issues going on, it could be not okay. I'm going to tell you just a crude test to see, because coffee is detox through the liver. Someone told me this. And so if you eat asparagus and you smell it in your urine, like heavily, that means it's using the same detox pathway as your coffee. So you're more likely to have detox issues with your coffee as well. So you want to just, again, it's a very personalized thing. If you're finding yourself tired all the time, I would maybe think, figure out what's the root cause of what's making you tired. If it's just you want a cup of coffee because it's enjoyable and you're bored, maybe that's another issue to think about. But I think, again, it really depends on what's going on in your situation directly. So can you cook in ghee instead of oil? I think ghee is great. It's got a super high smoke point, and I think if you like the flavor, you can absolutely use that instead of a different oil. But again, I would still mix it up, you know, use ghee one day, use coconut oil another day, olive a third day.
Diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk
Would-
about the importance of fiber and whether you recommend a powder if you don't get enough naturally?
Yes, I think so. If you're not getting enough fiber, you can take psyllium husk. I add it to my baking. Many times I'll bake something, I'll throw in a scoop of psyllium husk in it. It just gives me that extra fiber. I make pancakes with sweet potato flour the other day. I threw in some psyllium husk, and you could tell it was thickening as it was going. I was like, wow, this is all my fiber. So yes, I think you could, if you don't think you're getting enough. You can absolutely just drink enough water as well, because that can constipate you otherwise if you're eating fiber and not drinking enough water.
Right. But also if there's a digestive issue going on here, I would also try to figure that out. Is it because you're not getting enough fiber, or things are just not moving through? And those are two separate things. So I would maybe think about that a little bit. And there's also other, instead of fiber powder, you could, if you feel like you're not getting enough fiber through your food, add things like chia seeds into different foods, or even flax seeds on salads. And those have tons of, they become jelly-like. If you've ever stuck chia seeds in water, it becomes gelatinous. And so that really helps your digestive tract to help push things through, instead of just a fiber powder, which I also, again, I agree. If things are working and you just feel like you're not getting enough, it's not bad to take it with enough water.
What do you think about melatonin if you are a complete night owl? Also, my 12-year-old seems to be a night owl who often complains that he cannot sleep. Melatonin okay? I've held off, but I'm curious. I would say for kids, I wouldn't get them used to melatonin. You can try it for a few weeks and maybe help his circadian rhythm, but I wouldn't make that a permanent thing with children.
Mm-hmm.
And even with you, if you're a night owl, I would, what it is like in the morning, if you don't have enough cortisol, this is when people have trouble falling asleep at night, because your cortisol is high some other time during their day. It could be at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. So what it's called, this is really important. It's called cortisol awakening response. And I call it your car. I call it jump starting your car first thing in the morning. You need to be able to have a very healthy cortisol awakening response first thing in the morning. For you to do that, as soon as you wake up, you need to do high intensity exercise. Something like, I have a bike right by my bed. As soon as I wake up, I go to the bathroom, come back. I don't brush. I don't even change. I get on my bike shoes. I get on it, and for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you need to work out first thing in the morning to increase that cortisol level. You need to do as much as you can. Like, you cannot go anymore. You need to do it for 1 minute, take a break for 30 seconds, then go and for another minute. But that 1 minute, you're pushing yourself so hard. Your cortisol, this is what is called your cortisol awakening response. You need to push it as much as possible and increase that cortisol level first thing in the morning. The other thing that helps is having with your eyes, having a very stark difference between light and day. So if you go out first, so do this first thing in the morning, then go out for 5 minutes in bright sunlight. And then a really cold shower. This will jumpstart your cortisol in the morning really well. Once you have a high cortisol in the morning, it'll last you through the day. And then as cortisol goes down, you should start to feel sleepy at night. So really important to have a good cortisol awakening response first thing in the morning. There are lots of things you can do. High intensity, definitely one of them, but not for 15 minutes, not for 20 minutes. All it takes is 3 or 4 minutes of really high intensity exercise. It could be anything. It could be, you have apps now called Kilo or other apps that can tell you what to do for 1 minute. They count, they say, okay, now jump squats for 1 minute and then take a break for 30 minutes. So if you don't have a bike by your bed, just use an app or do squats for 1 minute, take a break for 1 minute, do anything, burpees for 1 minute, take a break for 30 seconds. That's what will jumpstart your cortisol.
Right. I agree with that. And if you're having trouble getting out of bed, that's a sign to maybe start rejiggering part of your circadian clock. Because we should be going to sleep there's a second wind around 11 o'clock. If you're not asleep by, this is in Ayurvedic, in other cultures too, in Chinese medicine. If you're not asleep around 11, there's a second wind that kicks in. And that's what might be happening. This night owl effect is that sometimes when you pass that phase, you're just, you're wide awake.
Yeah.
But it's like wiring yourself.
Yeah, have a routine, a nighttime routine. Turn off. For me, I turn off my computer an hour and a half hour to an hour earlier before it's my bedtime. I have a routine. I brush my teeth. I do some breathing exercises, whatever that can be for you. I go hang out with my girls for a little bit, but I don't look at my phone. I don't look at my computer. But if something's bothering me and I know I have a list of things to do, I'll quickly turn my phone on, write up everything I need to do tomorrow. I feel like I've just given that task to my phone, and then I turn it off, and then I try to sleep. Have a night routine. It really helps you get into that. Take a bath, whatever that is for you, but just have a routine. That will really help you. But while we're on the topic of sleep, I want to mention a glass of wine shouldn't be a part of that routine. I get a lot like, oh, can I have a glass of wine? Like I get that from my patients. No. Wine sedates you. Sedation is not sleep. During sleep, you go through multiple cycles, and it's in that deep sleep where you produce a lot of the cells that are really important for immunity. And you're not going to get into that deep state of sleep if you're sedating yourself with a glass of wine or a bottle of wine every night. You need to be able to have a healthy sleep cycle, and alcohol stops that from happening. So be careful about the amount of wine you'll have before bed.
If you're having trouble sleeping, I would say I'd say I'm more in moderation camp. Like every now and then it's fine. And
no, I agree with you. Every now and then it's fine, but it shouldn't be part of your routine. And also, just to finish off, melatonin is okay for adults. It's just not. I wouldn't recommend it for kids, but for adults, I think it's okay to.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree, especially now. I feel like that's
at least until you start taking. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's the complaint I'm hearing a lot about from people, is that they can't sleep. They're very stressed, and I don't know if you found this. I feel like a lot of people are stress eating as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've with people that I work with, I always say, let's try to find the triggers, because sometimes it's boredom, sometimes it's emotional eating. There's all sorts of reasons, and there's a lot of research to show that if you journal, which requires some organization, but if you journal, you can actually figure out how to break this cycle a little bit in terms of stress eating. And you can also find other alternatives too. Like if you understand that you're eating or stress eating at 3 o'clock every day, maybe you're not eating the right combinations of food, the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates to keep you satiated at lunch. So maybe that's the issue. Maybe you're bored. I mean, 3 o'clock was the time my kids used to come home. And so I think that was my trigger where like, oh, I better start stocking up on something. So I feel like that's something I've been hearing a lot. Stress eating is a real thing. I see there's one question. I'm confused about cortisol. Isn't too much cortisol associated with high stress? We need cortisol, and you're right, too much is associated with high stress, and there's something that happens, the fight or flight syndrome, when you've just been in stress mode the whole time and you can't like break that circuit loop. But you do need a certain amount of cortisol. Cortisol is there for a reason. It's there to protect us for certain ways. It starts your cycle in your day, and then it gets you up. It gets you sort of that energy. But if it's on all the time, is a different stress response.
Yeah, cortisol is anti-inflammatory, so we need it. We need certain amounts of it in the body, and the cortisol that is produced from stress is different than your first morning cortisol. You can have an exaggerated response first thing in the morning, but that's generally not an issue with the amount of fatigue and everything that people have today. When you have cortisol that's released from stress, initially your body produces cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, but that slows down, and then it becomes extremely inflammatory. So that is different. That's different than your morning cortisol.
I think that's all the questions we have. So I don't know if Margie wanted to pop back on and say anything. No, does anyone else have any other questions?
We have actually one question on here. Is MMR vaccine helpful in coronavirus since it has the same protein as coronavirus? I am in no position to talk about vaccines. I don't know if Silu has a stand on that.
I do not. I'd say there's so much unknown about the vaccine itself and the virus itself too, and that we're still learning, that I would be totally not the right person to answer that.
So let me jump back in. Thank you very much. This is a very energized, interesting conversation. I thank you both for your time. I thought it was terrific. I want to add back up on the screen how people can contact you. So you both have businesses, you both have practices, and let me just get this up for I hope everyone can see this, but if you'd like to speak with Ipashri or with Silu, they both have websites. Ipashri's business is called Nourish. You can go to www.ipashri.com. And Silu, who's written a book called Bite Me, is on eatsmileglow.com. So, or you can email ICC, you can email me if you'd like more information. But I think it's been a very interesting and informative hour, and I thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.